Are non-compete agreements illegal in Minnesota? Well, you may have heard in 2023, most non-compete agreements were banned by the Minnesota legislature if they are created after July 1st, 2023, and they relate to employment or independent contractors. Minnesota is joining California, North Dakota, Oklahoma, and Washington, D.C., at least those are the states that I know of, that have banned virtually all employment non-compete agreements. This is huge for Minnesota. It's huge because for years, people have relied on non-compete agreements as a way to entrust somebody with confidential information, knowing that they can't use that to compete against an employer later. Whatever your position's on whether non-competes should be illegal, that's kind of an aside. They now are in Minnesota. There are some exceptions. What are those exceptions? Well, first, there's an exception for the sale of a business, like business owners. There's an exception for merging and dissolving a business, but all of that has to do with the business owners. It is not related to the individual employees. Now, one of the real concerning areas of this law is the fact that it applies to independent contractors. Well, what does that mean? Because if you think about it, any contract with another party makes the parties independent contractors, unless they're employees. I think the legislature meant to apply this not just to employees, but individuals who provide services for the business who are independent contractors. But by including all Minnesota independent contractors, there's no exception for big businesses who have contracts together. I mean, look at it this way. If Apple and Google have a contract that they're going to engage in a particular effort together and that they'll agree not to compete in that space, those are independent contractors. And if they're doing business in Minnesota, at least a significant amount of business, there's an argument that that applies to them. So the courts have yet to figure out what to do about this. And in my experience lobbying the Minnesota legislature, it's quite common for legislation to get through initially and then get cleaned up in subsequent legislative sessions. So it certainly is possible that in 2024 or 2025, you might have some clarity provided on these issues. And if you don't, ultimately it's going to be up to the Minnesota Supreme Court to decide what qualifies as an independent contractor, especially as it relates to large companies who agree not to compete with each other. Will those agreements be enforceable or are they banned? To learn more about this, we'll have a link in the description below. So just to summarize, all Minnesota non-compete agreements started from July 1st, 2023 onward are banned in Minnesota. The ban applies to independent contractors according to the statute, and there are a couple exceptions for essentially buyers and sellers of a business or business owners dissolving their company. What isn't included in the Minnesota non-compete ban? Confidentiality agreements are still enforceable, and that means like a non-disclosure agreement where parties agree to keep something confidential. In other words, they have to keep it confidential, but they can still compete with that knowledge in their head. The second exception to the Minnesota non-compete agreement ban is non-solicitation agreements. What are non-solicitation agreements? It's when parties agree not to solicit the employees or vendors or customers of a company. So let's say Emily works for a company and she signs a non-solicitation agreement that says for 1 year after leaving the company, She will not solicit the employees, clients, customers, patients, or other relationships of the company. And then Emily leaves and she goes to another employer. Under that non-solicitation agreement, she would be prohibited from soliciting those relationships, even though she could still compete in the marketplace, because although non-compete agreements are banned, non-solicitation agreements remain enforceable. All right. If you have any constructive feedback, please feel free to provide that. I am somewhat new to this, and I'm working to provide value that's relevant to you as business owners and other listeners interested in entrepreneurial and business topics. It's my goal to demystify business law so that people have practical understanding and are empowered to run their business and avoid legal problems and hopefully experience a better business and a better life. If you'd like to learn more about me, you can go to aaronhall.com. If you'd like the free videos that I send out only exclusively to subscribers, you can get them at aaronhall.com/free. And if you'd like more content like this, you are welcome to subscribe to this YouTube channel, and you will be notified next time when we go live, which I expect will be quite soon here. Thanks for joining me today.